This no-till planting space is now entering its third winter, and rather than putting in the cover crop like I did last year, I'm going to be bringing in several wheelbarrows of this natively produced compost and allowing the chickens to continue to break that down and to work that into the soil. I still have a bit of these dry corn stalks to remove out of here. These chickens will have the opportunity to work this area over for the next couple of weeks. And I'm going to minimize the amount of feed that I give them and make them work for what food is in here. One of the ways that I'm going to encourage that is to make sure that I run the water in here every day. And what that's going to do is that's going to bring the soil life up closer to the surface. So worms and things like pill bugs and other invertebrates will be more readily available for these chickens to work down and to try to find. The chickens have been working pretty diligently in here daily and scratching and loosening the top layer of soil and exposing things like these root balls from the previous crop that was in here. There's not many weeds that remain in this space. The chickens have done a pretty fantastic job of removing all of the surface weeds and loosening the top bit of soil. And what does remain makes it very easy just to pull out, gather up before I start to prep this further. Over the past couple of seasons, I've been working the space behind me with cover cropping, bringing in amendments, and decompaction with my broad fork. This is dry, it's hard, it's completely compacted, and it took a tremendous amount of work to work this soil. Let me show you by contrast what it looks like on the other side of the fence. At this point, I brought in about a yard worth of compost, scattered it out in smaller piles, and I'm just going to allow the hens over the next couple of days to kind of spread this out for me and work through it. But the compaction in here, you can see I can throw it almost all the way down. And so I'll come in here with my broad fork. I'll come through here and decompact about every foot throughout this entire bed. And what that'll do is it'll allow water and nutrients to infiltrate down to at least 12 inches, while remaining blocks of soil will remain intact, not disturbing the soil structure. I've had good results in here thus far, but as you can see, all the way down. This is the 12-inch meadow creature. I've made one final pass through here with my broad fork, and then I've begun to work this material up into some rows. As I prep these rows, I'm beginning to see some very encouraging signs. There's an awful lot of soil life that's visibly present in the form of worms and pill bugs and other invertebrates crawling around as I turn the soil. And there's a lot of soil aggregation all the way down to the subsoil level, which is going to dramatically increase the ability of this soil to not only retain moisture, but allow water to infiltrate. And what I've decided to do this year is bring in compost in between these rows. Now, that's not necessarily going to help the crop that's being planted this season, but it will definitely be something that this space will benefit from in successive plantings. So I'm bringing in at least another couple of wheelbarrows of compost, laying it down in the trenches alongside these rows, and then this will get covered with wood chips. By bringing in these wood chips in between the rows, it'll have numerous benefits. Regulating soil temperature and retaining moisture are just some of the benefits that will help to encourage the development of the soil life. It'll also help with weed suppression. And then over time, as this breaks down throughout the season, it's going to add a nice fungal component. As far as timing for when to plant your garlic, you're going to want to see that get into the ground a month before your first frost. So it's going to vary from zone to zone, but typically what we do here in zone 9A is somewhere around the 1st of October to the middle of October. I'd like to see all my garlic get planted at that point. It will be harvested sometime around the middle of June to the 1st of July. As far as the planting depth and what the spacing should be, I like to use a very simple guide, which is just my hand. I'll use the first knuckle, which will give me about 2 inches of depth to set my depth on my holes. And then I'll use my fist, which will give me 4 to 4.5 inches roughly of spacing in between bulbs, which will allow them to adequately get size without being too crowded. Making sure that when you plant, you leave the paper intact, just like this, and then you take the part where the root's at, which is more or less the flat bottom. That's going to go down, and then the pointy end is going to go up, covered with about 2 inches of soil. If you're in an area where it's a lot colder, you may need to increase your depth. For convenience in planting, I like to break all the bulbs into their individual cloves and just put them into a bucket. That way when I'm planting, it's just easy to reach in and grab what I need and go. And then I set all my holes first, and then I can just come through and sort this and plant them with the bottoms down and the tops up. And one of the really awesome things about garlic is it's super easy to grow. And it's one of those types of crops that saving your seed from the previous year is an easy thing to do. And it's actually extremely smart because the cost of garlic, good organic seed garlic, is quite expensive. I was just at the nursery the other day and I happened to look and see what they're charging for garlic, and it was $33 a pound. And that's going to probably get you somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 6 bulbs per pound. Now there's approximately 150 or so seed in this row alone. And looking down a little closer, you can see the seed in there. Final step in the planting process is to provide a good layer of mulch over the top of what I just planted. That's going to provide protection to the seed as well as the soil. Wood chips might be an appropriate choice in this context. Shredded leaves might also be a good organic alternative. Straw might as well. Just make sure that the straw and the material that you're bringing in is from a known source. Half of the space has now been planted out in garlic. The remainder will get planted in January with onion. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.